Hello, everybody. This is my fragments of the past constructing a perspective for the future. And my name is AJ Michaelson, and this is my German final presentation. Starting with agenda, I'm going to talk about the introduction, as well as course media, the importance of this course media, as well as conclusion and questions. The biggest thing is all going to relate to my topic of Holocaust remembrance. And how important this is through this class as well as the media. And a little bit of introduction to why I chose this topic. Um, Remembrance has so many different avenues, as well as reoccurring themes and interpretation. I think this class as a whole serves as a way of remembrance as ongoing education. And the lecture discussions we had were so important that can all really be tied back to learning lessons from the Holocaust. There's also some more traditional ways of remembrance through memorials and monuments, as well as literature and media, which I'll talk about later in this presentation and its importance. Going off my experience, this class also taught me so much. As one of the few I was able to really apply myself. With my limited knowledge, I was able to have so many different experiences and gain a lot of knowledge, which really goes back to the theme of education through remembrance, and these memories and how they can serve future generations. Now a little bit getting into the course media, one of the most essential parts. First things first, starting with Maus. I found the passage of Vladek's, describing Auschwitz to really stand out to me. It's him, narrating the horrors of the Holocaust, and some of the fears and his survival techniques and the terrible things he had to go through, which are all shown in these black and white images. How this relates to remembrance. It really it talks directly about his suffering, and it talks about his memory, and the media itself is a way to preserve his memory and eventually share with future generations, which I found. There's a ton of different interesting ways this film pulls emotion, using speech balloons to represent dialogue. The smaller balloons mean someone's more afraid, as well as that the constant black and white theme. Such a powerful technique, as black and white are often associated with cold and harsh. Additionally, there's the text, or the graphic novel, which also I found really interesting, is that it's a graphic novel, isn't very linear. It kind of it's a little abrupt, and it goes all over the places. As far as the author, Spielman does a great job connecting the matter, and really producing that credibility through such an interesting avenue in text. And overall, it's such an interesting graphic novel, as it provides an informative way of informative memories of the Holocaust through a graphic novel, which isn't typically seen. A lot of these features do a great job doing that. The second media I found was The Flat. It's where Arnon's exploring his grandmother's apartment. This also had some really interesting, media effects. The fact that this film is really taking, place in a single setting in her apartment, really stood out to me as something that I've never really seen before. This film being released in 2011, it has a ton of relevance, as it also relates to the theme of lost identity and trying to find identity, as he's going through his apartment and finding things, and which is also really interesting, as it's done in a nonfiction way, as the filmmakers using the film as a way to go through his own family's investigation, and the slow camera movements create this and really builds up the apartment to be almost like a sacred place where he's finding, or almost like a memorial, through the dim lighting. It really adds the context of it's solace and in a safe area where it serves as a memorial for remembrance. The last one I found was The Lost, A Search for 6 of 6 Million. This was a text I personally found, where the author follows a journey to uncover the fate of Jewish relatives, again, which is done in so many different ways. It's really, about the burden of remembering. The author has to, accept some difficult truths about what he's following and the nature of loss and grief. Um, and as far as timing, this was released in 2006 with a wave of literature, and the book, really has an open dialogue, and in a nonfiction context, which is kind of like in a documentary approach. A lot of the writing is very meticulous with clear syntax that pulls in emotion, relating to the horrors that these people had to go through, and overall it builds a great story that a reader can easily follow along with. The importance of this can be shown in so many different ways about how the media, and there's a abundance of similarities, and about remembrance is not just about remembering the past. It's preserving the ideals that go with it. I mentioned earlier how this connects to the themes of identity, from the second essay. Remembrance is just not a neutral act. It's can either reaffirm some of the things we believed about media, or you can even change them. How Holocaust memorials or even museums, emphasize the aspects of tragedy, while though there were triumphs that we have to remember as well. Um, this was done, through a lot of narration and education, which was shown in the text in this class as well, which all ultimately serve a really important purpose. Um, I think that focusing on memory is this active idea is that these medias are trying to educate us, as well as show the emotion and show what really happened during the Holocaust, was so important. And that's just kind of to wrap it up, was one of the biggest things I found was how we interpret the past. Um, I think questioning is one of the most important parts of a presentation, and I had one of my family friends who's a professor in a similar field go through my presentation, and one question that stood out to him was, how effective are these memorials and museums, and how do they compare about to the effectiveness of media? And I think they do a great deal. I think I've personally been able to see is the exhibits do a great job. But nowadays, that media is almost taking over with effectiveness. Media is more accessible to more people, and a lot of this times, not saying it's more effective, but it can be just as effective.